Well, this is a Monday, and we have a very special show for you. We're casting it in the ThinkTech Global category on ThinkTech Talks. I'm Jay Fidell. I'm really delighted here to spend some time with Dr. Ping Zhang, who's a professor of China and East Asian Studies at the University of Tel Aviv, and somebody who has specialized in his academic career as a scholar about the Jews in China and the dialogue between the Chinese and the Jews. Really, really interesting. I have so many questions for you. Thank you for coming on the show on short notice.
Thank you for inviting me.
This is really important. So you're from what city in China?
I'm from Beijing.
Beijing.
Yeah.
And where did you go to school in China?
When did I go? I went to the college. I went to the Peking University in Beijing, and I studied my BA degree of Chinese literature, and then I continued my MA studies there. So what is called Eastern literature. It's Asian literature. So during my MA studies, they started Hebrew class in Peking University, and that was the first time ever in Chinese history, in whole Chinese history, there was a Hebrew class was opened in Chinese university. So I was very excited, and I took that course. So I started to study Hebrew.
The language?
The language, and then the Hebrew literature. I was fascinated by stories of Shai.
Was there a moment or an event or something you saw or learned that made you take this direction?
No, the thing is that this turning point in my life, because before that, all I wanted to do is about Chinese literature, classic Chinese literature. And I really don't know what happened to me at this turning point. I remember this was the day of registration of the courses, and I went into the office of the department, and the secretary told me, you know what, we opened a new course this year, Hebrew, and nobody ever learned it in China. So I said, okay, I want it. So I took
what was it about this that interested you? I mean, was there something there, something that presented about this course of study that interested you?
I think I'm not sure, because before that I knew absolutely nothing about Hebrew or Jewish tradition. Nothing. I think what interested me was that what she said, nobody ever learned it in China. So there's something nobody ever did. So I want to do it.
Were the classes full of people?
There were 8 students. That was the first class. 8 students. I think 2 of them dropped out during the studies, and 8 of them graduated. 6 of them graduated, and half the class, 3 of them today are working in the Chinese Foreign Ministry, and they work in the Chinese embassy, China embassy in Israel.
How interesting.
Yeah.
So now, did the course of study include learning the Hebrew language?
Yeah, learning the Hebrew language, basically learning the Hebrew language, and I read also the Hebrew literature, Israeli literature, and I was fascinated by the Israeli writer Shai, his story. So I decided to translate his story into Chinese. So I translated several of his stories into Chinese and published them in China. I think it's the first time Hebrew literature was translated from Hebrew into Chinese, and was published. And then in 1993, I got the opportunity to go to study in Israel. At the beginning, it was a 1-year language exchange program. I just go to learn some Hebrew. You know, the China and Israel, they established a diplomatic relationship in 1992.
Okay.
So I went there in 1993.
Why was there no diplomatic relationships until 1992?
Oh, that's a very complicated question. I think one of the main reasons was that because of the Cold War, and China saw itself belongs to the communism camp, and Israel was in the capitalism camp. And also, China want to establish kind of a good relationship with Arab countries, but they don't have. But they didn't have. China back then was a poor and backward country. They didn't have much to offer to the Chinese, to Arab countries, and then so to be against Israel is part of it's kind of a way to get close to the Arab countries.
So who's the premier in 1992? That was Deng Xiaoping?
Deng Xiaoping was the real leader.
Yes.
China. The prime minister was Li Peng.
So was it his initiative, Deng Xiaoping's initiative, that the diplomatic relations were
what
created?
is known to us was actually the relationship started from the end of 1970s with military contact between China and Israel, and I think in certain stage Israel provided to China military assistance, equipment, technology, etc. And from there, the whole thing started. I think that in China, actually, the voice of supporting China-Israel diplomatic relationship actually first of all came from the army, and then it's developed. Yeah.
Interesting. So, in the course of your studies at Peking University, did you meet Israelis? Did you meet Jewish people from outside of China? Were they the teachers, perhaps?
Yeah, the teacher, our first teacher was I'll put it this way. All of our teachers are American Jews, because when I studied there was no diplomatic relationship, so Israelis cannot teach there. And so they are all the American Jews. And we have our first teacher, he was Israeli, I think, until age 16 or something. Then he immigrated to America. And then he went to China to teach, after college, he went to China to teach English. But then in 1985, when they started the course, they started to look for a teacher. And he speaks Hebrew, so he can teach. Also very nice guy, very smart. Speaks Hebrew without problem, but he doesn't actually know much about grammar. So the real joke is that when we ask questions about grammar, he didn't really know how to explain. So the things he didn't know how to explain, he would say not important. And then the student learn trick, and when he asked questions when we didn't know, we say not important. So then I set the rules. Only the teacher is allowed to say not important in the class, not the students. But then we got some real good teachers, and I mean we have the Dr. Miriam Petrak from UC Berkeley, and she taught there 2 years. And she's a wonderful person, and she's a wonderful teacher. And I got to know about Shai Agnon from her. She simply brought the Shai Agnon story and start to read with us.
So you learned the language, you learned the history and the culture. Did you learn the religion? Did you learn Jewish?
No.
It was not part of the
not at all. I went to Israel to study a little bit language, and I was still on track of literature. I tried to find a chance to do a PhD in Israel on comparative literature between Chinese and Israeli literature.
Now, when you say literature,
yeah,
when you say Israeli literature, Hebrew Jewish literature, are you talking about all the languages or just Hebrew? I mean, for example, Yiddish. A huge body of literature in Yiddish.
I'm talking about the modern Israeli literature written in Hebrew.
Okay.
Written in Hebrew.
Okay.
Yeah. But then another turning point happened in 1996. I met Rabbi Adinstadtas, and he's a person really with long-term sight. Back in 1996, China and Israel just started this diplomatic relationship. The relationship was very, very cool. It's not as good as today it is. But he saw
you say cool. What do you mean?
I mean, there was a diplomatic relationship, but there were not much activities.
Okay.
There was not much cooperation. There was not really investment from China in Israel like today.
Yeah.
But he saw the opportunity and he saw the future and he thought that this is a good chance to introduce Judaism to China. So he was looking for someone who can translate the Jewish classic, the Pirkei Avot, into Chinese, and they want to publish it in China.
Why?
So,
Why? I mean, what was the? There's a long way between Israel and China, and it's a long cultural way too. Why was there interest in translating Israeli literature into Chinese, Israeli publications into Chinese? What was the reason?
Yeah. It's a very good question. Yeah, the thing is that from Israeli side, I think there's a thinking about this, the strategy of the whole, strategy about the Israeli position in the whole world. Israel is traditionally connected to the West world, to Europe, to America, and in 1993, when I went to Israel, very strange. I don't know how to explain it, but a lot of Israeli people back then already thought China is an important power in the world, and Israel should develop a good relationship with China.
It's a practical thing.
Yeah, and
it's not an ancestral thing. Some people feel that because of the Silk Road, that indigenous people from the Middle East are actually part Chinese. Because of the Silk Road, from way back when. And so there's a historical, even a DNA connection between the Chinese and people from the Middle East.
Yeah.
Was it that? Was that part of this?
I'm not sure there's any, DNA fact in this, but what I was amazed really is that, in 1993, the situation in China was not that good. And Chinese people, like I am, we were not confident about the future of China. But when I went to Israel, a lot of Israelis, they were very confident with the future of China, and they think China will become a power in the world. And then
they could see into the future.
Yeah,
they were very.
This is something I don't. They have this kind of belief.
The U.S. didn't see it that. Nixon saw it, but not the whole U.S.
And also later, I learned actually there's something long before that. I read later when Chinese President Jiang Zemin visited Israel, the Israeli government asked me to translate a document into Chinese to show the Chinese president. And that is the document that was a speech of David Ben-Gurion, I think in 1967. So in 1967, when China was in big chaos in this Cultural Revolution period, Ben-Gurion already said China is going to be a big power in the world, and we cannot ignore China. And what we are going to do is we are going to help China economically. We are going to help China to develop its economic, and so when China become a developed country, it will help to keep the order of the world instead of disrupting. So this is really something I read that speech. I was amazed.
It's very interesting, very visionary.
Very, yeah.
And on the other side, the Chinese could see that the Israelis were special, that they had unique qualities.
Very. Many Chinese are very. They hold some kind of hostility against foreigners. Very few foreign culture or foreign people receive this kind of this kind of understanding in China. Very positive. If you go to China, you say I'm a Jew, and then the usual reaction from Chinese people, even if you go to a small town, countryside, people heard you're a Jew. The first thing they say, "Oh, you are smart."
So interesting.
Yeah, the second thing they will say, "Oh, you are similar to us." This is something connected. If you are smart, you are similar to us. If you're similar to us, you are smart. Yeah.
We're going to take a short break. This is Dr. Ping Zhang. He's professor of, China and Eastern European Studies at the University of Tel Aviv, here on ThinkTech Global, and we're talking about the Jews in China with a very unique person and a very unique subject. We'll be right back after this short break.
Oh my goodness gracious, are you in luck? You know what? The hurricane blew away the biggest storytelling event in the state, and we rescheduled it. Pardon Parks and Recreation announces the 26th annual Talk Story Festival, the biggest celebration that you've ever seen. Now hold on to your hat. After Halloween, the next weekend on November 7th and 8th. That's what? You're right, 7th and 8th, from 6 to 9 o'clock, both nights, free. Spooky stories on Friday night. The best storytellers, we're bringing them in from the Big Island and from Maui. Oh my goodness, don't come alone. And on Saturday, it's beyond us. 8 of us are coming together and passing the story of Pele and Hi'iaka, the biggest epic tale the Hawaiians have yet produced in print. We're going to put it on our tongues and spit it out. Here's a word to the wise. Smart birds who love stories go down to McCoy Pavilion November 7th and 8th for story time. 6 to 9, absolutely free. Brought to you by your Parks Department. Can you tell? I'm really excited. I'm really excited.
We're back. We're live. This is ThinkTech Global. We're talking about the Jews in China with an expert on the subject, Dr. Ping Zhang, who's a professor of Chinese and Eastern European Studies at the University of Tel Aviv. You've been at the University of Tel Aviv for a long time, yeah?
Yeah, 20 years.
20 years?
Yeah.
Okay, but who's counting? Yeah. Anyway, I want to tell you a story,
Okay.
which you probably already know.
Okay.
Okay, 1937 in Germany, Kristallnacht. And well-heeled Jews had to get out. And they found a way to get out. They bought steamship tickets from Germany to China. One-way, well, it was two-way tickets, but they only took it one way. They took their valuables with them, and they made to the port of Shanghai, where they got off and stayed. And they stayed there until after the war, when most of them left and came to this country, as a matter of fact. But during that time, they were taken in by the Chinese. The Chinese protected them, helped them, gave them a place. They were kind, you know, beyond any requirement to be kind during the war, even during the Japanese occupation. Why did the Chinese do that for the Jews?
Yeah, this is a very important issue, and I think this is in China, you say you don't have native anti-Semitism. Chinese people don't think Jewish people are different people, and they don't think they are dangerous or something. Chinese people more than less they think Jewish people are similar to them. So if you're Jewish people, if Jewish person, you go to China, usually you are welcome. Usually you are welcome. So this is, I think, something in China, something China that is better than what you have in the West. And I hope we can keep it that way, because today with all the Western influence over under China, I see also come with all kind of good influences that come also bad things. One of them is anti-Semitism. You start to have people writing about how the Jews control the world without conspiracy. The financial crisis actually was created by Jewish people. I hope this kind of things is only temporary and will not take its roots in China. So
if I go to the western end of China, to what's the name of that big city,
Xinjiang. Xinjiang West Part,
Yeah. Big city, okay? 30 million people.
Pro
yeah. And I identify myself as Jewish. Is that person going to have a special feeling about me? Is he going to, treat me differently than he would any other Westerner?
The problem, if you go to the west part of China, northwest, I mean, the chance is that you might meet a Muslim there, because that's an area with a lot of Chinese Muslims. The stories that I heard from my students traveling to there, some kind of mixed. Sometimes they might Muslims and Chinese Muslims said, "We are Chinese Muslims, we don't care." So you are Jewish, you are Jewish, you are guys, no problem. But sometimes they can meet some kind of extremist, and they refuse to serve them, and they curse them. So
how about Beijing? How about Shanghai?
Beijing, Shanghai, I don't think there's a problem, because very little chance that you can meet Chinese Muslims. Usually you meet regular Chinese people, and until now, they are still holding a very positive feeling, and they saw the positive image of the.
What makes them change? I mean, what is the? I don't know if it's anti-Semitism or something else, but what makes them change to be less positive about the Jews?
No, they are not changing yet.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that this kind of anti-Semitism theory or anti-Semitism sayings are entering China. There are people are writing this kind of books. You know what? This is a very interesting question. Somehow this image of Jewish people, positive image of Jewish people as smart people, somehow helped this anti-Semitism, because when you think about they are smart people, so somebody said, oh, they are controlling the world. This makes this somehow believable, yeah, because they are smart, yeah. So it's it's not that simple,
yeah.
But right now I can say happily, anti-Semitism is still something only under China from abroad,
yeah.
And it's still not part of Chinese culture.
Yes, yes. What about you know, you've been in University of Tel Aviv and in Israel, essentially living there for 20 years,
yeah.
Since the middle 90s.
Yeah.
And have you been writing your impressions of life in Israel to be published back in China in Mandarin? Have you been sending the word back? What's that like?
Yeah.
What have you been writing?
I wrote a lot. I have my blog, Chinese blog, and I have the my Chinese in Chinese it's called Weibo. It's actually Chinese version of Twitter. And I'm a very active writer until 2 or 3 years ago. I wrote more than 100 articles about life in Israel, about Middle East conflicts, about traditional traditional Jewish people, Jewish literature, Israeli theater, almost everything. Not everything, but covered a wide range of topics. And my blog is actually very influential in China.
What's the name of the blog?
I have several. The name of the blog is actually with my name. It's Zhang's blog.
Okay. Zhang.
Yeah.
Zhangping.com.
Yeah. And especially when there's something focused on a war happened there, and it became Israel and the Middle East became a focus of the media. My blog can be very influential. For example, in the past July, when the war happened in Gaza, I wrote several pieces about this war. One of them I think received in my blog. I received 3 million, 2 million or 3 million, 2 million to 3 million readers reading, click. 2 or 3, and then people repost it everywhere. So it's.
You were covering
really,
the day-to-day elements of the war.
But I gave comments. I don't cover day-to-day. I'm not.
You're a commentator.
Yeah.
So what's your position? I mean, as a commentator, are you Zionist? Are you pro-Israel? Would you say?
People say that I'm very pro-Israel, and the traditional Chinese media was not against Jewish people, but against Zionism. It's kind of ideology. Now it's changing. Now it's much better actually in China. Usually now, if you read about Israel-Palestinian conflict, you can have very objective pieces in Chinese media. But just 10 years ago, if you go to read it, everything was against Israel. So actually, I came out. One of the motives that made me to start this blog was that to give people some kind of balanced idea about this conflict, about Israel, everything. So I spoke all the time very positive about Israel, and I defended Israeli positions. Not that I agree with everything Israeli government did, and I don't think that you cannot criticize the state of Israel. But in Chinese, in environmental Chinese media, I say myself it's very important to speak for Israel in order to keep the opinions balanced.
Yes. Sounds to me like you are unique I mean,
Thank
you
you.
are a Chinese professor, a scholar, living a long time in Israel, speaking about the relationship, the dialogue. I think you used the word dialogue
Yeah, yeah.
between the Jews and the Chinese. Is there anybody else in that space?
Very few people. This is the inter-traditional dialogue between Chinese and Jewish tradition is very new academic field. So very few people are doing this, and there are very little achievements. And the university that I stayed, we have Tel Aviv University. I think until now we are one of the centers of this kind of dialogue and study. We have actually, if we are talking about professors, we have actually something like 3 or 4 professors who is doing work in this field.
Chinese or Jewish?
No, the dialogue between Jewish tradition and Chinese tradition.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm one of them. And in China, you have a center in the Shandong University. I'm actually also a guest professor there. So I do both sides. In Israel, I teach about China. When I go to China, I teach about Judaism.
How often do you travel?
Well, that position in the Shandong University actually asked me to go to teach 1 course a year, but I don't have so much time, so I actually go to teach 1 course every 2 years. I give one course, a very intensive course. I give every evening. I go there, stay 2 weeks, and so it's 10 evenings, so something like 30 hours. So I give courses about Mishnah, I give courses about Agadah, I give courses about Talmud.
Mishnah, Haggadah.
Yeah.
These are religious books,
Yeah,
aren't they?
and for
You're
me,
teaching about religious books.
Yeah, teach about Jewish tradition. I feel this is about tradition. So because my field is about the inter-traditional dialogue between Chinese and Jewish tradition. So, and if you're talking about Jewish tradition, we're talking about Torah. We are talking about the text. So the most important thing for me, I think, we start this dialogue by making the Chinese people understand Jewish text, and this is, I think, the first step of this dialogue.
So do you find a common denominator? Do you find similarities between these, ancient Hebrew texts and the books and the culture of China?
Yeah. I found. Actually, there are lots of similarities between Chinese and Jewish people. So when I went to Israel, I found the similarities immediately, and people are talking about it, not only in China, also in the Western world. And I think through my study, through my research, I think I found the most important cause for all these similarities. If we are looking at the world of thinking in this world, in academic world, usually they talk about 2 kinds of thinkings. You have way-seeking thinking, which is Chinese, which is Chinese philosophy, Chinese tradition, and you have truth-seeking tradition, which is Greek tradition. And the difference is that in way-seeking tradition, you don't ask about what this world is. You ask the most important question you ask is that how do we live in this world? And in Greek tradition, the first thing they ask is what this world is. And now, if you put the Jewish tradition into this picture, and you can see amazing Jewish tradition ask the same question as Chinese people. They don't ask about what this world is. They ask about how do we live our life in this world. So if you open Talmud, they try to set rules for every details of your life. How do you do this? How do you do that? And they don't ask what the world is made of. So this is, I think, this is the key point of our similarity between Chinese tradition and Jewish tradition. We are both tradition of, if I use the word of Franz Rosenzweig, so this is a tradition of into life. We are not looking for a life outside of this world or some kind of transcendental. We are looking for the meaning of the life in this world and in this life.
Wonderful. Dr. Ping Zhang, Professor of Chinese and East Asian Studies at the University of Tel Aviv. Where else? And here on ThinkTech Global, we're talking about the Jews in China and the dialogue between the Jews and the Chinese. We'll be right back after this short.
Aloha, I'm Keli'i Akina, president of the Grassroots Institute. One of the things I love being, however, is the host of the weekly program on ThinkTech Hawaii called Ehana Kako, which means let's work together. I get to interview movers and shakers in our town and across the world so that you and I together can learn and to grow. Please join me every Monday from 2 to 3 p.m. or watch us on the recording www.thinktechhawaii.com. Aloha and Ehana Kako. Let's work together.
Okay, we're back. We're live. We're here with Dr. Ping Zhang, professor of Chinese and East Asian Studies at the University of Tel Aviv. We're talking about the dialogue between the Jews and the Chinese, which he's been watching for his entire scholarly career now. So we spoke about the impressions of the Chinese of the Jews. I mean, the Chinese thoughts about the Jews. What about the Jews? How do they see the Chinese? You've been there.
Yeah. First of all, like I told you, back in 1993 when I went to Israel, I saw that Israelis thought about China more positively than I thought, than many Chinese thought. So I think and also it's not only my impression. Many Chinese people travel to Israel, and immediately they got a home-like feeling. You know, Israeli people are very friendly to Chinese people. I can't really explain this, but I think they are more friendly to Chinese people than they are to the Europeans or Westerners. And many Chinese students, for example, come to Tel Aviv University, and they feel like family-like. You know, the Israeli students are very, very warm to them and very friendly and help them a lot. And many of them, many of Chinese students, when they left, they really didn't want to leave, and after they left, they really miss this place. And many of them came to America. And after so many years, actually yesterday I received email from someone that I know from 20 years ago when I came to Israel. He stayed there 2 years, and he wrote me email and said, "I miss Israel." So this is a very unique, phenomenon. You can say Chinese people came to Israel and they were treated very, very well, actually.
Are there a lot of Chinese in Israel right now? I mean, I'm Chinese. I mean mainland Chinese.
Yeah. Not that much. You have Israel is basically a non-immigrant country for someone who is not Jewish, and most of Chinese community there are people who are married somehow to Jewish people, and so that is community. I think something like 200 or 300 people. And then you have something like several hundred Chinese students studying there. And the largest Chinese community there was the Chinese laborers, Chinese workers who came to Israel to work for 5 years something.
Special
they work
visa.
in restaurants, special visa, working visa. And they work in restaurants, in construction sites, and part of agriculture, I think, also.
You know, Ping, I get the impression that you are unique and that you're occupying, a place in the academic world that is very special between these two cultures and countries, and I wonder if you have disciples, to use that word, who are going to carry the word after you. In other words, you're gone, you're retired, for whatever reason, you're not writing anymore. Is there somebody that will carry this on after you?
This is a wonderful question. This is something that I have been thinking about it for several years, and especially because I'm translating the Jewish classics into Chinese, and I accumulated a lot of experience and a lot of techniques, and I cannot finish it in my life because this is a huge volume, and I need someone really take this from me and continue his work. So I think I also talked about I need to find someone Chinese, because when you translate this kind of text into Chinese, you must be a native speaker. So the students,
Your successor would have to be Chinese.
Has to be. And someone has to be very good in Chinese and not regular Chinese people. So I think in the next few years, I will spend more time in China, in Shandong University, and I will try to raise some PhD students there.
What a great idea!
So
What a great
after
thought.
that, I hope so.
So we
I
can't
think,
let this stop with you. It has to continue. Yeah.
and it has to be. Yeah, I actually take it as my responsibility.
Yeah.
I also talked about this with Chinese officials from Chinese government. I got support from them, and I think in the next few years they will grant me a kind of special position there, and so that I can recruit some students. And we'll see.
So you said you'd spend a little more time in China trying to create a succession, but
Yeah.
does that mean that at the end of your career you will retire in China, or is it possible that at the end of your career you will retire in Israel?
I think I will retire in Israel because I'm still doing my translation, and there's no place better than Israel doing this.
Why do you say that? What is it about Israel that you like?
Oh no, because I'm translating Mishnah into Chinese, so
One
so
has to
I
do
have,
that.
I have a lot of questions. Of course, it's a very difficult text. So in Israel, it's very easy to find people to talk about it, ask questions, and and you have all kind of references. It's also even about, for example, I translated the first seder of Mishnah. It's basically about agriculture, so there are a lot of names of animals, plants. And in Israel, it's very easy. You can say, oh, they're talking about this kind of plant, and they're talking about that kind of flower.
Sure, have to be
So
there.
you have to be there.
Yeah. So, how was life like for you? I mean, all these years you certainly developed an affinity for the place. Do you like the food? Are you worried about the dangers of terrorism and war? I mean, how do you feel about your daily life in Tel Aviv?
I feel very happy there. I feel very happy because I have very good friends there, and Israeli friends, Jewish people. And when Israelis became your friend, they are true friends, and they really help you, and they really do everything for you. So actually, I really feel home there. There's nothing more I can say about it. As about the danger, of course, when war happens, when terrorist attack happens, you feel you are directly threatened. But what I did is that I do my best to ignore them. I do my best to lead a normal life. I think this is the best way to fight terrorism. So back in, for example, 2002, 2003, there were suicide bombings all over Israel every day. Every day the news. In the evening, you turn on the news, you try to see how many was killed today. But I traveled a lot. People stay home, but I traveled a lot in this 2-3 years, and I enjoy so much because nobody is traveling. So I usually go to a national park, and in the parking lot only 2 cars: my car and the car of the gatekeeper. But yeah.
So I neglected to ask you at the outset, why are you in Hawaii? Are you here on some sabbatical? What special arrangement to teach or to read or write? What?
Yeah, I come here for my sabbatical year. Actually, that's not my first time here. I came here 2 years ago, and I'm working with a great Chinese philosopher. Is one of the great masters of New Confucianism, a professor in Hawaii University, Professor Zhang.
What's his name?
Professor Zhong Yingcheng.
Dong Yin Chang.
Yeah. And I read a lot of his works, and I was inspired by his philosophy, and so it's very important for me. After so many years of learning about Judaism and everything, I found myself 1 year I can continue working on Judaism, and I can also learn more about Chinese philosophy.
Wonderful to talk to you, Ping Zhang, professor of Chinese and East Asian Studies at the University of Tel Aviv. I feel we could talk a lot longer. This is ThinkTech Global. I'm Jay Fidell. We've been talking about the dialogue between the Jews and the Chinese, a subject dear to my heart. Thank you so much for coming on our show.
Thank you.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Zaijian.
Zaijian.
Shalom.